Welcome to the Dork Forest. Jackie and her pals will never bore us. Shameless confessions
about our obsession
will make us laugh and smile. So let's explore the Dork Forest and dork out for a while.
Happy New Year! Hi, I'm Jackie Cation. You're listening to the Dork Forest. It is available on all of the websites, and including iTunes and Stitcher and YouTube. And if you go to dorkforest.com or jackiecation.com, you'll find links to all of it. And then I have another podcast with Lori Kilmartin just about stand-up comedy. But this is the Dork Forest, and it's January 2020, so Happy New Year, and feel free to start donating again. That's right. Donations went off last year, and I don't blame you, but think of me. And PayPal will let you do it monthly if you want, but I understand if you don't want, because monthly is its own commitment. But the people who do it monthly, I said do. I totally appreciate that. But there is also going to be new merch. I'm phasing out one of the Dork Forest t-shirts. I think it's the black one. It might be the green one. The green one's almost completely out of stock, so I think it might be the Dork Forest one itself, but feel free to try and order stuff so that I can get those two new shirts on the website, because right now the merch page is a bit crowded, shall we say. By the way, my website is done by Vilmos. You know that. The song that was just sang was composed by Mike Rickberg. He'll sing his version of the Mexican hat dance at the end of the program, and Patrick Brady is going to fix this audio and has been doing it for these many years, and I genuinely appreciate that about him so much. The new shirts are going to be a shirt with a bunch of my dad's sayings and a drawing of his face on that Jenny Fine did. And Jenny Fine, of course, was the artist who did the Meat Shield t-shirt, and she also did the art for the Horcrux album and DVD. You can get all of my old merch still at JackieCation.com, and the new merch, feel free to email me, Jackie@JackieCation.com, and we'll figure it out, is what I'm saying. I'm going to record a new album in 2020, but I don't know where or when. Feel free to come and watch me work on the new hour. At JackieCation.com has all of my tour dates, and at JackieCation on Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat. There's also a Dork Forest Ranger page that you can get into. Donations, PayPal, Venmo, do whatever you need to do. But I'm very appreciative of everybody's support over the last 13 years. Let's get into some dorkdoms, shall we? Hey, it's Jackie Cation. I'm in my living room. Leah Mansfield, let us meet again and again, shall we? It's nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you again.
Again.
We have met, the first time we met was like in 2010.
Sure, it's been 10 years that we've been meeting.
I don't remember.
Oh, good.
And you don't remember.
Right.
So this is perfect.
Who told us? Who told us that we met in 2010?
Gretchen Hess.
Oh, she was the one? Who knew?
She was the one. She was the middle for you one time.
Well, that'll happen.
Yeah.
Sure wish I remembered Gretchen Hess. She sounds very nice.
She is. She's a cool lady. She took me on all my earliest road gigs.
Okay. Yeah, Leah Mansfield, stand-up comedy, by the way.
Yes.
You're a comic. You could be found on Instagram and Twitter at your name, which is LeahMansfield, Leah Mansfield. Where'd you come up? Where did you start doing stand-up?
I started in Denver.
Oh.
I did my open mic time in Denver. I started back in 2005.
Okay, nice.
And I'm a very slow person. I'm very slow. So I didn't start like opening, like doing hosting gigs until I was 3 years in. And then I didn't
what that makes me? Happy. Because I, as much as I love the people who just jump right in, and the woman who emceed for me in Vermont 2 weeks ago, she was like, yeah, I've been doing it 5 months.
Oh my gosh.
And I was terrified.
Yes,
and
5 months? How do you even
It turns out she was great. She was fine. She wasn't doing a lot of time, which I thank the club for, but she was the 7 that she did was good.
Good.
Yeah. So, but 5 months is so early.
It's so early. You don't even, it's like.
But I think she did sketch and improv for a long time before that, which will help.
That does really help.
Right. Because at least you know how to milk the goodwill of the audience.
Yes.
And get through the set.
It's most of hosting is just like, hey, we're all here together. Are you ready?
Let's all get pointed in the same direction.
Yeah.
And then here's some jokes.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of here's some jokes.
Yeah. Here's an example of what you'll hear for the next hour and a half.
Yes. And hopefully you
only
will
they keep getting better.
Right. hopefully
night goes on.
they will get better and better. Yeah. And then, so Instagram is where people, if they want to find your stand-up and see your personal life.
Yes, I am. I am. Yes, at the same time, they are mixed. My dog also has an Instagram. That is no comedy, just personal life. And the only reason to get an animal Instagram, and I know people hate this, but the best reason to get an animal Instagram is when you get tired of humans.
Oh, okay.
You go, which happens to me all the time. You go over to your puppy Instagram and you hit the search button, and then it's just puppies and puppies, no humans, just puppies. And you can scroll
off of your own puppy Instagram or just in life.
Yeah,
or is there a hashtag?
Off my puppy Instagram. So my dog Willow has an Instagram because she's cute. She's stupid, but she's cute. And so when you go to the search button or you look in her feed, it's just dogs. It looks like a bunch of dogs did selfies and posted them for each other. It's the most adorable and wonderful escape from humanity.
And relief. Oh. Just a beautiful relief.
It's just a bunch of dogs resting, taking selfies, and then posting it for their dog friends. That's all it is. It's great.
That is hilarious.
Yes.
What is your dog? Your dog is Willow. So what's the dog's Instagram?
Willow Bean the dog.
Willow Bean. Yeah. The dog.
She's a Chihuahua. She's like 10 pounds.
Sure.
And then I have an older guy. He's 13, and he's like 20. He's like 22 pounds, and his tumors are probably like 5 pounds.
Okay. Yeah, that'll happen.
He's they keep getting bigger, and his regular body gets smaller.
Right.
He's the same size. Yeah, he's an old guy. Yeah. So he's too ugly for Instagram. So only Willow has an Instagram.
Oh, the rage that is just flowing back through the. Nobody's too ugly for Instagram. Too dog. There's not a dog who's too. Anyway, so Leah Mansfield, we met again because I had Tom Tran on.
Yes.
And Tom Tran was talking about how he goes around with people who are in the service and does stand-up comedy for Armed Forces Entertainment.
Yeah, he totally does.
And he didn't have any women. And it's all men.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I was like, hey, man, do you know any women? Are no women veterans doing stand-up? And he's like, I don't know. And so Maria Bamford, I just asked comics if they knew any women veterans who were doing stand-up. And so I got many.
Maria Bamford, who's not a veteran, clearly not a veteran.
No. Well, she's a veteran
in the best way.
Of her own wars.
Yes, that's fine. A veteran in the best way. Not a veteran in the best way, but she knows more veterans than Tom has. Women veterans.
Well, what she did was she frickin' tweeted it out, and I was like, "Oh, okay, all right. Now I've become a conduit, and I could be a conduit." And Tom eventually said, "This is great that you're a conduit. There's a guy who books this thing. Allow me to give you his email." And I was like, "Yes, just do that, because then it'll all work out." But that's how we met, because you are a veteran. Thank you for your willingness to serve. I never say thank you for your service, because I always
didn't do anything.
I wonder if they were a shitty service person.
Yes,
but I do wonder.
There's always a lot of shitty service people.
Well, I'm happy that everyone's willing to serve, because I was not.
Yeah,
that's.
I really thought it was going to be my career. I thought I was in love with the military since I was a little kid. I always wanted to fly, and and then I got into the real military, and I'm like, what a bunch of pieces of shit.
Okay. Well, it turns out, and I did not know this until I started doing more of these tours, which is, it's a job. Yeah. And it turns out sometimes you work with people you don't like.
Yeah.
And for the most part, and literally I have met, as you go around, you meet, and everyone's super nice, and most people got into it because they wanted to be of service. But then you'll meet Kevin or whatever, or Bill or whatever, and Bill's the guy who's like, you're only safe when you're with me. You're going to want to touch this muscle, right? You want to always be in contact with this bicep right here. And even his buddies are like, yeah, Kevin's a lot. Anyway, thank you so much for alleviating the boredom that is our lives. And so,
yes. I
So
did
you were in the
serve.
Air Force.
I was in the Air Force. I joined the Air Force because I grew up in a Navy town.
Okay, which one?
And Bremerton, Washington.
Okay,
Yeah.
Washington State?
Yes.
Okay.
Up in the corner by Canada. I always say we're like kind of Canadian-ish.
Oh, that's pretty Canadian-ish.
Yeah, we're like super nice, but not all the health care. So that's what... It's God's country,
just
but everyone
miles
is
away.
sick. Yeah.
Miles away, you can just jump over the border.
Yeah,
and get
you really
yourself
could. You could.
a
You can
drug.
start drinking at 19 in Canada. It's just overall better in Canada, and it was just as pretty as Western Washington. Like, if I had been smart, I would have bought property in Canada years ago.
Right.
So then when Trump was elected, I could have like legitimately followed through on my threat to leave.
Oh, fair enough. It's I'm always Okay, so what? Let's get back to, because the thing is so you went into the Air Force, and your dorkdom is nuclear weapons?
Yes. Here's what you fill out this Form 53 when you're a senior in college called a dream sheet. And on this dream sheet, this is what I put: aircraft maintenance.
Okay.
I put supply. I put transportation. I put security forces, which is the cops. All the most boring travel, lots of enlisted people.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to do these jobs. They didn't give it to me. They put me in nuclear weapons.
Oh, that's interesting, which was exciting. Or could have been.
Yeah, it could
Also
have
boring?
been. I went home and cried, to be honest. I cried a lot. I was not a very good officer because no one wants to be cried at, in the military.
Right, that is a weird disciplinary plan. It's a management skill that really is. That's the one that they're afraid women are going to do.
Yes,
You're just
and I did it all the time. I just would cry, and then they feel bad. Okay, I'll change my behavior. I'm like, yeah, do you want to see this? No, you don't.
So you were an officer.
I was.
How did that happen? How do you get to be an officer? I thought you had to either go to college or do something.
You do.
Okay.
I went to the University of Washington.
ROTC?
I did ROTC, yes.
Okay.
I went to boot camp when I was 19. I went back to boot camp when I was 20 to be an instructor. I think about that now. I'm like, I was 20 years old and I was just screaming at these kids who were mostly older than me.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. I was like the boot camp instructor in the movies where you wake them up, you put them to bed, and you scream at them.
Right, but why were they older than you? I mean,
because I was just so young for my age. Like, for my grade, a junior in college, I was only 20.
Right, but I would think that who's enlisting over the age of 20? You're just like...
Dude, you would be surprised, actually.
I am surprised.
People have like a 20-something crisis.
Yeah.
And they're like, I am a loser. I have no skills.
Right.
I'm tired of this town.
Right.
And then they go to the recruiter's office and they're like, make me a better person. And they're like, well, we can't do that, but we can give you this uniform and tell you to point a gun in this direction.
Right. And to run.
Yes.
And to make
you'll get
run.
in shape. You will. And there is something about the camaraderie of everyone's wearing the same thing. Everyone's going through the same thing.
Right. There's that team building things, which
stress does bind people together.
Right.
So like when you go through the stress together, even if it's imaginary, this is all imaginary stress.
Right.
Nuclear weapons is an entirely made up, stressful career field.
Really?
Because we're not launching them. There's no mission where we go out and use them.
Right. There's no even trying them out. We're done testing them, aren't we?
We are done testing nuclear warheads.
Okay.
However, we test the down stages still. So the rocket, the nuke sits on the top.
Okay.
This is where we can get into real nerdy stuff.
Yeah, let's do it.
So every 3 months, there's a thing called the slang term is called a foot shot. And it's basically where an entire crew, which means maintainers, the launchers, the security forces, there's like a group of them assigned. And every 3 months they go out to Vandenberg Air Force Base and they drop.
Where's that?
California.
Okay.
So do you know where?
So it's like a team. It's like a team goes out with a project.
Right. And
every 3 months?
Every 3 months. And they pull a different one from each squadron. So one squadron only gets one every couple of years.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so it's not like one person's doing it on. But they pull a nuke out of the hole. They take it to California.
Okay.
They rebuild the whole downstage.
Okay.
Because
just to make sure it works.
To make sure it works.
Right.
Now, would it work in war? See, we don't know. Because every time they do it, they rebuild the whole thing.
Okay.
So, like, the ones that are just sitting in the hole, who knows? You know what I mean?
There's like a maintenance schedule, I imagine.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
You're like, because I know that North Dakota has the most silos, and if they were their own country, they would be like the third most powerful country in the world, or some damn thing. Just 'cause
Minot, North Dakota has 4 squadrons left.
Why not Minot?
Friesen's the reason.
I don't think I saw that one. I've played Minot a bunch of times because I'm a Minneapolis comic.
Yeah.
And so that was as far west as I would get, right?
Yeah, why not Minot? Friesen's the reason.
That's funny. Let's drink a beverage.
Yeah, let's do it.
Hey, Rangers, I'm here with Leah Mansfield. Go ahead.
Yes, they have 4 squadrons left. There are 10 nukes in each squadron, giving them 40 nuclear warheads, which is more than most countries on Earth.
Yeah.
Montana has 3 squadrons, and then F.E. Warren, where I was stationed, is actually, the base is in Wyoming.
Okay.
But the missiles are in the tri-state area of Wyoming, Nebraska, Colorado.
Okay.
So the Squadron 9 was in 319th, was mostly Wyoming, Nebraska.
Okay.
And then the 320th is mostly Nebraska. They have the farthest site, which is India Launch Control Center. And that's where I served on 9/11, if you want to talk about 9/11 in the nuclear world.
These are all. This is all information that you're giving me, but
Yes.
I don't know what it means.
Oh, okay.
So you're camped.
Yeah,
in
okay.
Wyoming.
So I brought a map for you. So
Okay.
you can't see this on the podcast, but I brought her a map of
But
the
once
tri-state
I understand
area.
it, I'll be able to help.
Yes.
So okay.
here's the base.
There's the base in the middle of Wyoming.
It's like in the southeast corner.
Okay.
So this is just the corner.
Okay.
Casper's to the north, and Laramie's to the west.
Okay.
And so here are the different flights. So this is one squadron. This was my squadron. This is anyone that says 01 after it. That's where the missileers sit underground. There's a house.
Okay.
They have cops there. There's a guy who's a cook. That's his whole job, is a cook for everybody.
Right.
And
so essentially, where the ones are is where the bomb itself is.
No, the opposite.
Oh, the
it's where
opposite.
the command control center for the bomb.
Oh, okay.
They're all remotely controlled.
Okay.
And so
they're all remotely controlled?
Yeah.
That's not. Didn't we find out there was some trouble there with the Whopper War Games? Anyway, did nobody see did nobody internalize War Games?
Oh my gosh. We could talk about that too, because the introduction to that movie was two missileers going out on alert. That's what I did.
Okay.
So that was my job.
Your job was to sit in?
Yeah,
that was and watch the bomb and babysit
I was
the bomb?
turn the key, sir. That was my job.
Okay.
So when it opens, first of all, it's at night. That never happens. You only drive during the day. There's a snowstorm. That never happens. That's called like a road condition red. And everyone who's on alert just has to stay there. And if it's an extra day or extra 2 days or extra 3 days, tough luck.
They don't swap. They leave the people in charge.
Yeah, if it's snowing
overnight, especially if there's a giant storm, they're like, no, we're not going to relieve you of your duty.
No,
one of the problems is you signed up to just stick it out.
Yeah, and you just have to stay there. You will continue to stink worse and worse.
Right,
and you'll just watch TV and you'll like it. Someone will come get you when the roads are clear.
Exactly.
Yes.
So that's the whole plan.
Yes.
So okay, and they never. It's always an overnight shift. You never switch shifts in the middle of the night.
No, not unless someone is medically injured. Has to be removed. We had a guy that had to be removed by helicopter once, and I had to go in and relieve him because I was the backup commander. And so I had to drive. I was about to leave for a party in Fort Collins. I was so mad. And this guy almost had a brain aneurysm and passed out.
What an idiot.
I know.
Asshole.
What a dick.
Wow.
Messing up my party with his brain aneurysm. So I drove to the base. It was dark already. They had ginned up a new deputy to go out with me. And we were like, we're just going to take the whole crew because they've gone upstairs. They had once the commander passes out, you basically have broken the two concept rule, which is an important, like, two people have to be awake or you can sleep because you're not unconscious. Yeah. You're like wakeable.
Okay.
But once you pass out from a medical condition, then that gets reported all the way to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So that night they woke up the president.
Right.
While I'm driving to Cheyenne to relieve this guy.
Right. And how many people are in the silo or in the place where you're babysitting the bomb?
Yeah. Launch Control Center.
Yep. That's the name. That's the right name.
That's the name. It's two people.
Okay.
And they pull a 24-hour shift together.
And one of them's in charge.
Yes, the commander.
There's a commander, and then there's
commander and a deputy.
And a deputy. Got it.
Yep.
Okay.
And so you always come in as a deputy. I trained for 2 years as a deputy because I spent 1 year as an instructor.
Okay.
And then I upgraded at 2 years, which is kind of late. But when I did my upgrade, I was so good that nobody was worried. Like I flew through all my stuff, and it was no big deal.
What did you have to just take tests and sort of the writtens?
There's a full mock-up simulator. There's 3 of them.
Okay.
Full mock-up simulator of the Nuclear Launch Control Center.
Oh, okay.
And they bring you and your crew partner in, and you spend 4 hours every month sitting in this They call it the trainer.
Yeah.
And they pretend fires and security situations and missile tests and things go wrong with the missile. And then, it's kind of broken up into two parts. The first part's all like fires and maintenance and making sure you know how to process a guy onto the site to come and do maintenance. Because it's very complicated to get a guy in with the nuke to fix it.
Right.
You need a whole team of people, and there's like, this team only has this password, and this team only has this password.
Right.
And you need both teams to open the thing.
Right.
Right. So
that makes perfect sense.
Right. Everything is like that in nukes.
Holy smokes.
So you have to have two people for everything.
Yeah.
So when one person passes out, then the other person shuts down the console, goes upstairs, because you can't have one person alone in a situation where there's not a second person available.
Right.
Right.
Because that person couldn't work both keys. Could they work both keys?
There's things.
Can you reach?
No.
Okay. Probably not?
Now there's been launch studies done.
Okay.
Like there's enough stuff in the capsule for you to make a thing that turns them all at once.
Oh, okay.
But no one's going to do that because
Right.
there's other capsules on the same network as you watching your status, and you're watching their status you're all watching each other all the time.
Okay, so there's
somebody
lot
else
of...
sees this status and they can shut it down from their capsule.
Oh, okay.
So if one guy goes rogue,
right,
doesn't matter.
If you decide to go mad, people will notice.
You'll spend your life in jail,
right?
Because they're going to catch you. There's no escape from the capsule. You're literally trapped underground.
Are you locked underground essentially, or is it an elevator?
You're supposed to be. There is an elevator, but there's also a stairway. So. Yeah, when you go on there's a big house. They have a garage.
Okay.
They have a basketball court.
Okay. There can be some downtime.
Yeah. The other guys that are out there, there's a cook, there's a facility manager. He's like an enlisted sergeant, and he's kind of in charge of the facility.
Okay.
So like making sure everything works on the facility, that the oven works, and that it's clean, and the vehicles are gassed up, and like that's his job, is to make sure all that stuff is good. And then there's 6 cops. And all 8 of those people spend 3 days out there. But they're above ground, and they work 12 hours a day.
Okay.
And then the other 12 hours, they're just stuck out there so they can play basketball or watch TV or
Video
play pool
games.
or video games or whatever else,
Right.
sleep, But they work 12-hour shifts for 3 days, and then they go home and they have 3 days off.
Oh, okay.
So it's not really that bad. It's not hard work. It's just boring.
Right. It's just tedious.
It's tedious. Yeah, you're just doing the same thing over and over.
And you don't
over
want
and
it to
over
be exciting, because then
Right.
someone will have blown up a giant nuke.
Yes,
and
for us, or like we had a couple really fun stories. They're fun now. We had,
Sure.
yeah,
and then no one died.
Yeah.
That's those stories.
Sometimes they die.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So one time I was not on alert for this, but my friend who was a cop was on alert.
Okay.
She was upstairs in the same squadron. These 3 nuns were protesting nuclear weapons.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you know how nuns do.
Nuns do. I've been there. I've protested nukes.
Yeah.
Sure. I'm
Yeah.
not above it.
Yeah.
I've been doing this shit since the early 80s. Let's get in on it. Now, 78. I think it was, go ahead.
Oh, good. I wish they'd never been invented. I know enough about nukes to know they should never have been invented.
Well, I think the guy who invented them was like, oh, this was an error.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
I have become death, the destroyer of worlds. And he's like, well, shit.
Right. I mean, there's no way to put them back in the box, though, right? I mean, you can't get rid of the tech.
Yeah, that's the problem with technology is you would literally have to destroy the Earth and every bit of knowledge of nuclear weapons and start humanity over again.
Right. Which I read a Canticle for Leibowitz. I know what's happening.
I mean, I think if that was going to happen, I'd move to New Mexico. That's statistically the safest state.
Oh, really?
Nuclear
For nukes?
weapons launch, yeah.
Why is that? It's
Um,
in the middle of nowhere?
It's in the middle of nowhere, but also I think it's the farthest from like actual target sites in the United States. No major cities and no major...
We're back to war games.
Yeah.
So you want to be by Seattle. You're gone in a flash of
Seattle,
light.
Yes. Seattle is going up in a flash of light. LA is going up in a flash of light. You don't want to live in a post-nuclear world. People always talk about the apocalypse. I'm like, the only thing I would be doing is hunting down fentanyl. That's it.
What is fentanyl?
It's like souped-up heroin.
Oh, okay.
I would just be doing drugs until I killed myself if there was an apocalypse. I'm not going out to band together survivors
Right, and fight
deal
the
with
zombies.
radiation sickness and put off rape. No, I'm not doing any of that. I'm just doing heroin and I'm checking out.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. It's sort of I picture sort of that's what Tank Girl said and Jet Girl. Did you ever read that?
No.
Tank Girl and Tank Girl lives in a post-apocalyptic and she just wants to get all all junked up and stuff. And then she runs into people that are in trouble. It turns out she's Jack Reacher. You know,
That's what would happen to me.
That's what would happen to you.
That's what would happen to me.
You're
I'd
not
just be
looking
looking for
trouble.
heroin. And then,
but then you would have to help somebody because you're
know.
like, no, that's actually not cool to do that.
yeah. And then I'd be like, well, I actually know where stuff for survival is. I guess if we just go this way and not do heroin.
Fine. Do you
guess we'll
have any
be all right.
heroin as we walk over there? Anything? Is there? Anything? Opium? Just some sort of huge.
Do you have weed on? It's anything at this point. I would take a bottle of whiskey.
A hammer?
Oh God,
Just
I would.
something-
I would be such an alcoholic in the apocalypse for sure. All I
Well.
would need to do is raid one Bevmo.
The Bevmo. Mediocre though. The Bevmo.
Will you care though?
Well, no, you wouldn't, because the weird thing about Bevmo, and I digress. I know that
It's fine. It's cool.
let me tell you something about Bevmo. Is that you think it's going to be great?
Yeah.
You really do, because that's their whole plan,
That
right?
1 cent wine thing where you buy a bottle of wine and get the next one for a cent.
That sounds like a great deal, but here's where I'm at. Like, have you ever gone in going, there's an amazing soda or a very rare beer. I bet you they'll have it at Bevmo. Not a fancy wine, but like a weird beer or a fancy soda. And you walk in and you're like, fucking Diet Coke is $6 a 12-pack here too?
Yeah.
Fuck you.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any...
Oh, but they have limes. Like I couldn't get those anywhere. They don't sell limes anywhere. I couldn't just pick one off the street walking by.
Right, here we are in Los Angeles. There's a key lime tree right down the block from us that Andy is constantly picking from.
Oh, that's
And
amazing.
And I'm like, what are we doing with these? And he's like, we're going to do something with them. And then we don't.
Yeah.
But God love him.
Yeah. No,
He loves
it's-
the idea of the key lime.
Yeah. That's. I mean, if you have access to one.
Yeah, we have access to, like, we have a Valencia orange tree and a Meyer lemon tree in our backyard.
I have a Meyer lemon tree as well. I'm pretty excited. It's just produced its first lemon.
This guy has a pomelo, which is a grapefruit.
Yeah. The big yellow ones.
And then this guy over here, he's got peaches, and he's got pomegranates.
And I have your address now, so I can
And
just
now
come
you have
over
my
in the
address.
middle of the
Come on
night
over and just help
steal
yourself.
everyone's fruit.
Except for the fact you won't be stealing, you'll be helping. And though they're
I'll come over during the day then.
Yeah.
That'll be actually better for me because I like to
right,
be
don't
asleep
drive
at
in a
night.
snowstorm. It's so
If we get a snowstorm, that's it. We're
we are in nuclear winter.
yeah, like something bad has happened, and we should probably abandon Hollywood at that point.
Well-
it's going to be done.
That's okay. I mean, it's ironic that I live here because I never cared about the weather in Wisconsin and
Really?
Minnesota. I didn't mind it at
I
all.
hated it.
You didn't like it?
Oh, I lived in Minnesota for 2.5 years because I had been in Vegas as a blackjack dealer. And
What's happening, Leah Mansfield? We've weeded off. What?
Yeah, we've waded way off.
Well, let me just get some. How long were you in the service? When did you join?
99 to 04.
Okay.
So I was in for like 9/11. Pre 9/11 was actually.
I was there for 9/11. You guys, I was there. It was like I got to
was.
see the Stones once.
I
Anyway, go ahead.
I know. I was like, oh my God, I checked out a truck and drove to Nebraska on 9/11. It was real exciting.
Did you?
Yeah.
What was 9/11 like for the nuclear Air Force people?
The great question. I was a deputy, and at the time I was an instructor in the instructor shop. So that means I only had 2 alerts a month instead of 8. Normally you have 8 24-hour shifts a month. And
Okay.
So you go out, you come back the next day, you have a day off.
Okay.
And you do that 8 times.
Yeah.
And then you also have training. You have like emergency war order training, which is all your classifieds. Like you literally have your classroom in a vault.
Okay.
And then you have weapon system training. That's all unclassified stuff. That's like how your weapon system works in security situations. You have your monthly trainer ride. And then like any certifications or inspections that are coming up, you'll have extra stuff.
Okay. But because you were training at the time, you
Because I
only
was
had 2
training
of those.
too, but it just happened to be on 9/11.
Okay.
Which is really good because that weekend, it was the weekend after Labor Day.
Yeah.
And the weekend of Labor Day, I went with my friend John and drove to Oregon.
Okay.
Which is totally against the rules. I was literally AWOL. And not like, I had the time off. I wasn't due in for anything.
But you weren't
Or,
supposed to go that far.
I wasn't supposed to go that far. So if 9/11 had been instead 9/9,
Yeah.
I would have been in so much trouble
Because
I would have
did
been
they
in
call
Oregon.
everybody back
Yeah.
to the bases?
Yeah.
They were like, it doesn't matter where you are. Everybody come to the bases because we don't
Yeah.
know what's going to happen.
Yeah, well, it was report to phone report and then be at your house. And be
Okay.
ready. So it wasn't like don't come to base. They sent all non-essential personnel home.
Okay.
So so early in the morning, because the first plane hit at like 9-something New York time.
Right.
So I'm in Wyoming, and I go to check out the truck, and the sergeant in the transportation squadron is like, "Hey, Lieutenant, you got to come check this out."
Okay.
A plane just flew into the World Trade Center.
Right.
And I thought, like, oh, a Cessna's off course. This will be an interesting
it was a
news
crash.
story.
It was, it was a
nothing.
crash.
Yeah.
It wasn't a purposeful.
Right.
Yeah.
At the time, it was still just like, huh, that's interesting. And then I saw it, and I was like,
what the fuck is happening? Yeah.
I go, that's the smartest form of terrorism I've ever seen. And then I went back and I finished checking out the truck. Our first meeting, the second plane hit. Our second meeting, the Pentagon hit.
Right.
And then at that point, they shut the base down. They put us all in this windowless room.
Okay.
And sent all non-essential personnel home, and then they convened at the wing command post. And we just had to sit in this windowless room and watch the coverage in, like, there's like 40 of us in uniform, just like
watching television.
Watching the news.
That's where you got your information.
That's where I got my
I got my
Yes,
information. I was
literally.
sitting in North Hollywood with two other comedians.
Yeah.
And we watched a lot of coverage. And then at one point, it would then cut to local coverage. Like, what were we doing locally
Right.
to handle it?
Which is nothing, right?
Well, it's Los Angeles. And so I guess it was very funny because Disneyland got shut down and they were checking cars and stuff. And Jim Wooster, who has been on the program and is one of my oldest friends, said, God, Los Angeles is hilarious. No one cares about Los Angeles. What are you doing? Anyway, so
if this makes you feel any better, or maybe way worse, we did get a classified report. I assume it's been unclassified. If not, it is now. We got a classified report when things were still a jumble and we were still just getting information that there was a plane that they suspected that was inbound to Los Angeles. And it got headed off by fighter pilots.
Oh, fighter pilots. Oh, there you go.
Oh, the fighter pilots were airborne within minutes.
Okay.
Once they grounded all the airplanes, the only thing flying over America were fighter pilots.
Okay.
And we got briefings on like where the president was.
Right.
So they moved him to Nebraska.
Right.
Because there's an underground
like
presidential bunker in U.S. Stratcom, which is the headquarters of all space and nuclear weapons and stuff.
Okay.
So they flew him to Nebraska. And he was like flying around on the plane over Nebraska trying to decide if they were going to land.
Right.
And like I remember that happened. But mostly like they finally came back and they were just like, all right, well, we opened up the BX, which is like the department store.
Right.
You're going to go in the back entrance. You're going to purchase what you need for the next 3 or 4 days. We don't know how long you're going to be out there.
Okay.
Purchase extra food because trucks aren't running. So nobody on the map's going to have food. So we went out, we bought food, we bought clothing, like underwear.
Oh, socks and underwear.
Yeah, and for the other crew and stuff too, so they'd have stuff to
back
change
up.
in. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And we just piled out in the trucks, and I drove like 2.5 hours, and then I was out for 3.5 days.
Okay.
So, yeah, and it was really, like, we'd been in the middle of a worldwide exercise.
Yeah.
Submarines, foreign countries, all these people were involved in this exercise. Completely shut down on 9/11.
Okay.
So all the maintenance was shut down. All of the practice, everything was shut down. So we literally just sat in the under the earth.
Waiting to figure out.
Just watching CNN, and then it would just get to be too much. So thankfully we had a video cassette player, and we just started watching like 16 Candles and
whatever
There's
tapes.
Something About Mary, like anything to just get away from what was happening.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Right. I mean,
I think there's a basketball. Maybe basketball got canceled, but like a couple days after, I think they had a rescheduled basketball game.
Right. There was a lot of things that were like, are we going to continue to live our lives?
Yeah.
Yes, we are.
Yes.
The interesting thing about all of that is because of how stressful that job is, you need downtime. You need to not be thinking about nukes all the time, right?
Yes.
I mean, 16 Candles is important work. I mean, you literally have to. It's like now, right? I mean, there's so much terrible things going on that you're like, but if I only read the news, if I only concentrated on the things that are making me super sad or infuriated, I would probably kill myself, right?
Yeah.
Or I would look for heroin.
Yeah.
And
well, and it does make you wonder, like, when you think about a historical event like the 100 Years' War
okay,
between France and England.
I rarely think of it. But go. What 100 years was it? I always forget.
It was like in the 1400s.
Okay.
Joan of Arc. This is Joan of Arc's big moment with the 100 Years' War. It only lasted a second. They burned her at the stake like immediately.
It was quick. She was only 14 or 15.
Dude, if she'd been a dude, think how much longer she probably would have
She would have lasted at least till 19, right? She could have been Napoleon.
No, I think she was, Oh, she could have lived to be like 30.
Yeah.
If she had been a man and leading an army saying that God had directed this, she would be a hero.
Right. There would be many more statues. I was just in France, did not see one Joan of Arc statue.
You know where I saw a Joan of Arc statue?
Where?
Spain.
In Spain?
Yeah.
Of all places.
Montserrat has a Joan of Arc statue.
What town is that in?
It's like this mountain monastery outside of Barcelona.
Okay.
My girlfriend and I went to Spain and Portugal in November.
Oh, that's amazing.
She's rich. I mean, compared to us.
Compared to comics?
Compared to comics, she's super rich.
I feel pretty rich right now. I bought these pants yesterday.
Oh, my God.
I know. They were 40% off, but they were still like $200. Do you know what that is? These are expensive pants.
That's nice. She buys my pants, so I don't know. Whatever.
Oh, that's nice. What does she do?
She is currently on sabbatical, but she was an executive. She was the vice president of business strategy and development at Fox Next, which was the Fox branch of video. It was like video games and stuff.
Oh, nice.
And then when the Disney buyout happened, she had to sell the company that she had put together
that
to make this
Foxnet
video
had bought.
Right. And then Disney didn't want it, so then she had to help put together the sale. And of course, she had been a banker before, so she had to do the banker's jobs. And she went to Yale and Harvard. She does a bunch of like money strategy, like basically figuring out.
She's that person.
Yeah. She's
super smart and she's money smart, but she's also a video game. Or
she hates video games actually, but they make so much money.
Oh, so she's an executive.
So much money. Yeah, she's an executive. Yeah. Video games. I asked her just recently. I'm like, what's more profitable, video games or movies? And she's like, oh, video games, far more than
right. Well,
movies.
Do you know why? Because movies, everyone who works in movies belong to a union. Absolutely.
It's true. They do need a video game union that's similar to SAG. Yeah.
They're working on it.
When that happens, then I'll go write for video games. But like,
right. There's no money in writing for video. My husband makes video games for a living.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, he's a game designer and a producer.
Oh, I keep trying to get her to start a company because...
Didn't she start a company and they bought it?
No, she didn't start it. She basically is the strategist who comes in and identifies this company can be profitable, this company can be profitable, this company can be profitable.
I saw a movie. Wasn't there a movie about that guy who did that? It might have been George Clooney.
Oh, really?
Might have been a George Clooney movie where it was supposed to be a comedy, but he fell. It was dumb. It was Up in the Air, I think it was called.
Yeah, I never saw that. But
you're not missing a whole lot. It's a perfectly good movie.
I honestly, since my late 30s, have just been catching up on regular movies that everyone should have seen.
Oh,
you know,
wow! There's too many movies.
There's too many movies. And there's too many good TV shows.
Yeah, I refuse to catch up on anything. If I see something, it's just a fluke.
Oh,
and so I'm not.
I watched The Godfather last year.
Yeah, I've only seen the first one.
Yeah, I've only seen the first one too. So
yeah,
I watched it for a film class, and I was like, yeah. Cool.
It's look what they did. They did that very well.
Yes,
and everything is done very well, and everything is beautifully acted. And I have said this: Rangers of the Dork Forest. You know what I'm about to say. I would rather die by the means of open water than watch open water. I hate tension so badly that I would rather act in The Godfather or live through The Godfather or be killed by means of The Godfather than watch The Godfather. Especially Godfather 2, which is supposed to be better.
Go to Vegas?
No, I don't think so.
I don't know.
But The Godfather, I know all the quotes.
Yeah, that's all you need.
I have to tell you that many people who love The Godfather are listening to this going, what's happening? We haven't seen The Godfather 2 because all of my brothers, it's their favorite movie. Anyway.
Oh yes, and I get it. It's you have to see the original for like just to be able to. I feel like moving to LA and wanting to converse in the world of TV and movies means that everyone assumes you have this bedrock of information.
Right.
And
like, some people have a greater,
what Godfather 2 is about.
Right.
Yeah,
and you're going to get all the references and you're going to get all these things. But I will say this is there was a very interesting scene in a very dumb movie that I thoroughly enjoyed called The Long Shot.
Oh, I never saw that one.
Charlize Theron.
Oh, I should see that. She's one of my favorites.
And
she's made a lot of lesbians realize important things.
Important things. She was amazing in Fury Road. I did not recognize her in The Long Shot, but she was there with Seth Rogen, and she plays the Secretary of State, and it's this weird romantic comedy that I was furious with initially, and then I watched it on an airplane, and I've since own it, and I find it
really,
yeah. But there was a great scene where she's Secretary of State, and he doesn't. He's like, well, what do you like to watch? And she's like, I don't get to watch anything, but I read the synopses of everything. And he's like, well, it's not the same. And then she made some reference to Game of Thrones, but like deep, like long box, like she went way in. And he was like, yeah, right. And she goes, see, it doesn't matter. Just reading the synopses is fine.
Oh, man.
And so it's a cute movie.
Yeah. I think I saw a billboard for it, but I haven't actually seen it.
It's fine.
She was just in something I watched, though.
Could have been anything.
It could have been anything.
She's working.
Bombshell. I watched Bombshell.
Oh, I heard that was good, actually.
It actually is pretty good, yeah.
Oh, good. All right. I want to go back
to
a nuke thing, which is this. The when they come in to service the rockets that shoot the damn thing off. Mm-hmm. Who's doing? They're doing it every 3 months, and they're essentially going through the inventory, right? They're going to every nuke that we have and going, oh, it's time for number 7 to be overhauled.
Oh, no.
Is that how they do it?
No,
that's too bad, because that's how they should do it.
That's how they should do it. No.
That'd make sure all of them were in working condition.
Yeah, I don't know who sets the schedule. Some colonel probably somewhere sets the schedule and is like, we're going to pull from this squadron, and then that squadron.
All 4 of theirs or all 3 of theirs?
Well, squadron's made up of 50 nukes.
Okay.
So if the 321st is, we're going to pull from the 321st this July, then the 321st would be like, all right, let's pick a nuke. And then they would submit, like, we're going to have you take November 05 out of the whole. And they prep all that, and they have I think they have like a standby nuke. I'm not exactly sure where the downstages come from if they're not already in the hole, to be honest with you.
Okay.
So, like, if you go to the Air and Space Museum, that's the
in
first...
D.C.?
Yeah. That's the first nuclear weapon I ever saw was in... after I got out.
Okay.
And the downstage is this huge old rocket. And I know where they store the warheads because they have a special, thing to store warheads, but I don't know where they get new missiles. So maybe the hole stays empty for a couple months. I don't think that's true, though. I think they park a new one in there. And then when they take it out to California, they put it in the hole, they strip it down.
Okay.
They put all new parts on it, new computer, guidance computer, all that kind of stuff. And then they put a dummy warhead on the top.
Okay.
And then the whole crew launches it like it's a real nuke launch.
Okay.
And then it fires out there's an atoll out in the Pacific. It's like an uninhabited island.
Okay.
And they fire all these dummy warheads at this uninhabited island, which has probably just been shredded to bits over time.
Right.
Yeah, and then they have all these computers and people out in boats that are tracking it and all that, and they can tell you how accurate the missile was. And
okay, so they do that, but they don't use a real warhead.
No.
And then they use a staging parts of the rocket that have now been used. Yes. But they brought the warhead itself to California.
No, the warhead goes into a weapons storage area.
Okay.
And it's a special building on nuclear bases that's supposed to be impenetrable.
Right. Just more whatever.
Right.
I don't actually care because I can't stop it or fix it. Anyway, but what I am curious about...
Special Forces broke into the building in 3 minutes, by the way. It's not... They say it's secure, but it's Special Forces could get in there pretty quick.
Right. But then what do you brought a lighter? What are you going to do? Just do a Scrooge McDuck? You're just going to do an Acme fuse from it and try to blow it up? Yeah. I don't think they're...
It doesn't even... That's the funny thing is it doesn't even work like that. When you talk about nuclear accidents, it's almost always the rocket.
Okay.
It's not the actual, because so it's a type of explosion called a thermal nuclear explosion.
Okay.
The early ones, like the ones in Japan in World War II, are just nuclear explosions.
Okay.
Because it's a fission only, which is splitting the atom. Fusion is putting 2 back together.
Okay.
So nowadays we're on an upgraded version. it's called a thermonuclear. So there is a fusion reaction that happens that creates the material for the fission reaction
To split the atom.
things, which is the actual bomb part.
Okay.
So they're called thermonuclear because there's a fusion component and a fission component.
What is the fusion component? Why is it safer to have a fusion component, or is it just more powerful?
I think it's more powerful.
Okay.
So like now when you look up the size of the bombs used in 1945,
Right.
they're like 20 kilotons.
Okay.
Thermonuclear bombs are like 1 million kilotons. They're like, 1 million's kind of high, but like you basically have to measure, there's two measurements. There's kilotons
Right.
and megatons.
Okay.
And atomic bombs, the original ones, measured in kilotons. The ones we normally use measured in kilotons, right?
Yeah.
Because our weapon systems are more accurate.
Yeah.
So we would rather have a smaller bomb that is more accurate than a larger bomb that is less accurate,
Yes.
right?
Sure.
However, we are the most advanced. So when you consider countries who have nuclear weapons but are not as advanced as ours, they have less accurate weapons, which means bigger
weapons.
Yeah. They're also thermonuclear. The original ones were called hydrogen bombs.
Yeah.
And the largest one they ever detonated was 50 megatons. And it was by the USSR.
Okay.
Soviet Union, and the Soviet Union was gonna test one that was 100, and they determined that it would rip a hole in the atmosphere.
Oh,
and they were
God.
like, you can't do this. 50 is it. This is the top of the
50's the big of it. The biggest
50's
one.
the biggest one, yeah. And they've there's no more testing.
Right.
They don't test nuclear warheads anymore. I mean, some countries, it's hard to, there's
Well,
like
you don't know what they're doing, but or you know what
Yeah,
they're doing,
like-
but you can't really stop them.
right, like
Who,
is North
has
Korea
nukes?
Oh, well, us,
Right.
Russia,
Right.
and all of the former Soviet Union stuff, they returned their nuclear stockpile to
Okay.
Russia. So Russia got it all back from the stuff that was like in Ukraine. and
Supposedly,
stuff. Yeah,
yeah.
supposedly.
Right.
There are bombers that the Ukraine kept after
Yeah.
the fall. Like there's satellite images, and they're just like, they're ours now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Still sitting in Ukraine.
Right.
So, so there's us. There's the UK and France.
Okay, right, or UK and France.
Yep.
Okay.
India, Pakistan.
India and Pakistan. I remember that.
Yep. China, North Korea.
China and then North Korea.
Yeah, North Korea. Now what they have is very limited. Obviously, over 90% of the world's nuclear material is held by the United States and Russia.
Right.
So 10% is everybody else.
Okay.
And there's nations they think Israel is nuclear, but
Yeah.
Israel has never declared it.
Right.
And there was an incident in 1978 where satellites that were tracking that part of the Earth recorded a double flash. And a double flash is what is consistent with a nuclear weapons above ground test.
Oh, okay.
And so they received a double flash, and everyone was saying this is an Israel-South African joint
South
nuclear
Africa?
test. South Africa. This is back in the 70s. Mm-hmm. And so they think that South Africa was not the one who built the bomb, but was
Right.
providing support.
Okay.
And that Israel actually built the bomb.
Okay.
They denied it. They've never to this day
Said that they have nukes.
said that they have nukes or acknowledged that test.
Okay.
But since that test, South Africa has denounced all nuclear weapons and said that they will not pursue a nuclear weapons program.
Okay.
So
South Africa has decided. They also had to denounce apartheid since then. So,
yeah, I
don't
feel
know.
like South Africa had some other issues they needed to work on other than building a nuclear weapons arsenal.
right. Oh my
But North
gosh.
Korea has those problems and they don't care, man.
Right. Well, but they're more united in their oppression, right?
I
mean,
guess.
they're still in it, right?
Yeah.
The protests in North Korea are hard to follow because most people are scrabbling for food. They're mostly dying of starvation, so they don't have a lot of time for protesting.
Yeah.
And
And they're also like, they imprison generations of people there. So like,
right.
if your grandfather did something, effed
right,
up,
they take the whole clan.
yeah, they're going to take his kids and his grandkids
Right.
and put him in prison. So
Yeah.
it's like, you don't even remember the guy that was against the oppression. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's just so sad.
Yeah.
But anyway, they have nuclear weapons. Who else? There's like 9 countries total that have nukes. nukes.
Okay. And so when they store the warhead somewhere safe.
Yes.
They take the chassis essentially here.
Exactly.
They drop it in the hole and then they rebuild it and then they put a dummy nuke, a dummy thing on it. They shoot the whole thing off into the world.
Yep.
And then they have to rebuild one for the real nuke.
Yeah.
And they're like,
yeah.
They're like,
Pretty
okay,
much.
that worked. Let's make another one of those and go take it back to Nebraska, stick it in the hole, and then put the warhead back on it.
Yeah, I think they already have one built that's sort of like waiting somewhere.
Okay,
maybe it's in Stratcom in Nebraska. I don't know where maybe it's in Cheyenne Mountain. I doubt it. But
right, but the thing is so they might have built two, one to test to make sure it really worked, and then the other one to tweak if there was some sort of problem with it. So that's what they're doing every 3 months.
Yeah, but it's kind of cool because the downstage of the Minuteman, it doesn't go orbital. The Peacekeeper one, there used to be a Peacekeeper squadron at our base. They stood down in 2005. And the difference between the Minuteman and the Peacekeeper that's important is that Peacekeeper could hold 10 warheads and Minuteman could only hold 3 warheads.
And these are both rockets?
Yes.
The Minuteman is a rocket?
It's a rocket.
Okay.
The downstage is called Minuteman 3 is the one we've used the same since like the 60s. They had Minuteman 1, Minuteman 2, and then Minuteman 3 came out at the end of the 60s. And the advantage is they have solid fuel as opposed to liquid fuel.
Okay.
So like there was an accident back in the 60s most people know about where a guy dropped a wrench and the whole thing exploded. Killed him, killed the whole crew. This was back in the 60s. But they were using liquid fueled
jet fuel? Like liquid.
I don't know if it's jet fuel or if they have 2 fuels basically is what happens. And then when it ignites, the chambers are allowed to mix.
Okay.
And the subsequent chemical reaction is what drives the missile out of the hole.
Oh.
Right. So you have 2 liquids. So he pierced one of them and
with the wrench accidentally.
Yes. And it I think it's exposure to oxygen maybe has started the accident, or maybe there was a spark. Something like
happened.
that as the wrench was falling.
Yeah.
But nowadays, the way the Minuteman 3 works is that it's solid fueled. So if you think of like a tall Pringles canister.
Yep.
The part clinging to the walls is the fuel, solid fuel. And then they fire up the middle and it burns from the inside out. And that's how it gets off the ground. Oh,
because the stages, what's it called again?
Well, it's like a downstage.
Downstage.
Yeah.
Okay, so that stays in the hole. It comes up with
the whole thing. There's like multiple stages. It's like a rocket
going to the moon where it just kind of falls off, and it keeps going.
It's more like a rocket that would launch a satellite, direct TV satellite into space.
Okay,
it's like that size, right? It's not very big.
Okay,
and I don't think it can go orbital. They could probably adjust it. To make it go orbital, which basically just means it has enough thrust to leave the Earth's atmosphere and get into low Earth orbit.
Okay,
which is 17,500 miles per hour to get into low Earth orbit.
How far? So if it shoots off from Wyoming, where can it hit? Can it hit anywhere in the Earth?
Well, I should have brought a globe, but if you think about a circle, and we're here, and Russia's here, the fastest way around is not this way, right?
Right.
The fastest way is over the pole.
Yeah.
So poor Canada.
Oh, so we just go over Canada and then drop it that way.
Yeah.
But it's suborbital. It's not. We're not sending it into space and then sending it back down from space like some sort of.
It's a big
Avengers
arc.
movie.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a big arc. And the way it works is like there's several stages of the rocket. And just like when you see the space shuttle and they're like that first stage just falls off into the ground, that's what would happen. So Canada would be littered with these first stages that just fell down as it was heading over. And then it's got a computer. In that computer is the coordinates.
Okay.
And it also contains the gyroscope. So they do not use targeting information from computers. They use it from an old 60s gyroscope. It's a mechanical...
What the hell is a gyroscope?
It's a mechanic... It's like gimbal.
Nope.
Nope. Okay.
Is it round?
It's sort of like if you had like a thing inside of a thing.
Okay.
And then one side always knows where north is.
Okay, like a compass?
Yeah, let me see. I can look it up real quick. But basically it's like... So you don't have a launch... will not be impacted by a computer failure once it's off the ground.
Okay.
It'll still be accurately targeted. And because it requires a chemical reaction to start a nuclear reaction, that chemical reaction is the last thing that happens, so that it's not going to explode in the hole or over the United States.
Okay.
It will only explode at as it's re-entering low to the surface,
to the place. So the way it works is the stage, the rocket itself sends it off into the sky. It goes over Canada. Parts fall off.
Yeah.
As more chemical or as more oomph.
Yeah. Well, the thing is like your requirement for thrust goes down the higher you are. Right?
Okay.
Because, and it's not that there's less gravity. Mm-hmm. It's that there's less air friction.
Okay, because it's thinner.
Right.
Right. Okay. So as it travels and parts are falling off, the things that are staying on are the things that will create the chemical reaction of fusion, and then which will create in effect the fission.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty simplified, and I'm not even sure that I fully understand it. It's one of these things I actually tried to call my dad because he's he was a physicist, so he understands all this stuff. But he never called me back, so whatever, Dad. And he's retired too. It's like you have all day.
Right, you got a lot of time.
I've texted
here.
you 3 times.
Right.
I don't know, whatever. But yeah. So basically, yeah, and you have the computer. The warhead sits on top of the computer, and then there's a second stage. That second stage also has a rocket in it. Okay. And that is what is the first stage is just to get it out of the hole and off the ground. Okay. Once it's flying up through the air, it's using the computer with the court targets. It's using that gyroscope to then angle the rockets to make sure that the warhead is going into the right direction. Okay. And when it used to be multiple warheads, there's a treaty that was signed and we had to take them all down to single warheads. Okay. But when there were multiple warheads, then that's where the gimbal comes in, and you can arc a second or third nuclear weapon. Right. So basically you could have a line of cities and bomb them all with one missile. Oh, wow. As long as they're all in that range.
Right. As long as you could keep it going. Yeah. So now, I don't know things.
That's
so
fine.
it's
I don't know a lot of things either.
So it's each of these different stages is essentially another rocket. Yes. Or it's another engine.
It's another engine. That's
an engine burns off and falls. The next engine or rocket fires up and goes, no, we're still moving. Yep. And then it burns out and falls off. Yeah. As long as you need it to go until you get to the place where you wish to bomb. Yes. Yes. Okay. All right.
So, and that's the way all rockets launched from Earth.
That's how they all work.
That's how they all work.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. There's
because you're like, why is it so long? And what happens to the bottom one when you're going to the moon? You're like, no, we're just using the bottom one, and now it's done. Now we're using the middle one. Yeah. Oh, and now the middle one's done. Now we're using and then now we're at the moon. Yeah. Anyway.
Okay. And once you get out, when you see them, satellites get launched into space all the time. And I have friends who went and did satellite training, and basically, you have big, gigantic things to get you off the ground. But once you're in orbit, they're tiny little rockets.
Well, just to adjust.
Just to adjust.
Trajectory, essentially.
Because even though gravity is only 1% less at where the Mir space station is, your velocity, there's no air. Right. So your speed is so much faster.
Resistance.
There's no resistance, and you don't need big rockets to then keep you on course. Okay. Here's the Wikipedia definition of gyroscope.
Oh, good.
Yes. From the ancient Greek, so look, I don't know, it's in Greek, is a device used for measuring or maintaining orientation and angular velocity. It is a spinning wheel or disc in which the axis of rotation, spin axis, is free to assume any orientation by itself.
Okay.
so here's a picture of it if you want to try to...
Oh, right. Okay, so I have seen gyroscopes before. So it's a device used to measure and maintain orientation and angular velocity. So essentially, you use it with a compass, perhaps?
You use it with the targeting computer. Okay. So there's a targeting computer that tells you where in the world this is supposed to go. This is the thing that keeps it on target.
Okay, because
as far as
As far as
I
we know.
remember, yeah. I've never seen one of these in real life.
Do you realize we're almost at an hour?
Oh my God, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
What did you want to tell us?
I didn't even talk about like all my. Well, I don't. Do you have questions about what it's like to experience it, or what it's like to
experience what?
Experience or training or.
Well, the thing is I wanted what I've learned from this hour is how rockets work.
Robert Goddard, you should look him up, man. He's the father of modern rocketry.
All right. Well, I've heard of him, and
it's more than most people.
Well, and it's so you did that for 6 years,
like 5 years. Yeah,
5
I was
years.
actually on duty for 4 years as a missileer, and then I did a year of training.
Right.
Which was this is what they do when they bring you into nuke training. You sit down on your first day, and they bring in a judge advocate general who's a lawyer.
Okay.
And they bring in a priest.
Uh-huh.
And they sit down with you and they tell you, we talk about nuclear weapons and like the ethics of nuclear weapons. And then at the end of it, they say, all right, now sign this piece of paper saying that you'll launch or we'll kick you out of the Air Force.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are your two choices right there. Yeah.
There was one guy that decided he was like, I'm not going to launch a nuclear weapon, and they didn't kick him out, and it was because he had a PhD in psychology.
Okay.
And so he went off to be an Air Force psychologist, which I think was his plan the whole time.
Right. Well, and the thing is and they didn't ask you if you wanted to be in nukes, right? Because you wanted to be anything else
anything else. I wanted to work with enlisted people.
Yeah.
And I wanted to travel.
Yeah.
And I got an all-officer career field that just traveled to Nebraska.
Right. Oh, my
terrible.
God.
Yeah. So people are like, why'd you get out? I'm like, because it was terrible. Every day was windy and terrible.
Right. The wind is ridiculous in the plains.
And I like action. I want to do things.
Right.
And just keeping me underground staring at a computer screen was a complete waste of my personality and abilities.
Right. Exactly. Leah Mansfield, you guys, she's a dynamite. And she's a real pistol.
But I was like the funniest officer, and I was always making people laugh, and I was just like, I just don't think I can do this for a lifetime.
Right. It was, you would have been willing to if they would have given you anything.
Anything.
That's so weird that they were like, no, this is
me.
the specific thing I did not want to do.
Yeah. They could have stuck me in an AWACS plane just flying around storms, and I would have been happier.
Right.
And I don't even like flying. I mean, I did then, but I don't now.
Right.
I'm too old now.
Well, flying is flying. It's fine. It's just like driving a car. It can be fun. It can also be incredibly tedious. So
I just know people now.
Oh,
you've met people and you're like, how is it that all these years that people have been checking the screws on this wing, that one person was going through a divorce and missed one, and then that one gets loose, and then 7 years later, I'm on the flight and the plane. I don't know. That's what I think.
Interesting. That is something to think about. But and yet you drive your car and you don't have any sort of.
That's true.
I have to. I'm not here to tell you statistics, but but I will say that here's what I like about flying. It gets me there faster than driving. And
that's the main draw.
That is the entire draw of me getting in an airplane. So, but here's what people should know about Leah Mansfield is that she does stand-up comedy. We've barely scratched the surface of what it's all. You got medals. You got a flight suit. You got a cool bomber jacket.
Yes, I got this. I was on the base honor guards, which means I had to do a lot of funerals for young airmen who killed themselves.
Oh my God.
Mostly drinking and driving.
Okay.
That's like
I was like
only one guy put the gun
suicide?
in his mouth.
Okay.
And he was at work, dude. He was out. He killed himself on top of a nuclear weapon. I'm serious. They had to come and get his body up.
Yeah, I'm glad you got out. It sounds boring.
It's very boring. This is the pocket rocket. That's what it's called. This is a nuclear weapons badge.
Oh, that was the
you
badge?
get when you complete training, yeah.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
And this is the badge for my squadron. We're the Screaming Eagles.
Screaming Eagles.
Yeah, these are my note cards.
Did you get a hat?
Yeah, this is... Oh,
that's your hat? That's your Air Force hat?
Yeah. See? It's a
cap. Oh, it's like a little cap thing.
It's a little cap.
Sure.
Now I'm...
Yep.
Yeah, so that's what I did. I waited to launch nuclear weapons, then I got out and I started stand-up comedy.
Right. And now you do stand-up comedy, and you'll be at Flappers. You do that show at Flappers called the Bootlegger something?
Yeah, it's like the Bootlegger comedy
hour
show.
Or something like that.
They do like 50 shows a week, and I think they just at some point they must just go through the dictionary and be like, "There's a word."
Oh, they picked the word.
I didn't pick the word. No, I did not.
Well, it's you would have picked something possibly to do with heroin. And so when we think about the nuclear
heroin,
winter and Leah Mansfield, it's okay. But find her online. And thanks for doing the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is fun, and I love talking about myself. So. It's great.
And you know the rules out there, Rangers. Take care of each other.
My hat, my hat, my hat. They're dancing around my hat, my hat, my hat, my hat. Well, what do you think of that? If it looks like a Mexican hat dance and it sounds like a Mexican hat dance, it's most likely a Mexican hat dance. So take off your hat and let's dance.
Yay! Oh my God. Why don't we just call that as the end of the show?